Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, boys and girls, it's time to break out that bat and that glove once more because baseball season is upon us and the ladies are getting back out onto the diamond. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals, and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because you're listening. You're literally within the sound of my voice. So please subscribe to the podcast. Hit that subscribe button, give us the old 5-star rating, basically wherever you get your podcasts. We're over at Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Google, pretty much all providers, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel, so if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we're on Instagram, or IG as the kids call it. Well, at where else would we be? We're at In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates, and finally, and I say this a lot, I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but it's true. Please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large, because if we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please pay us a visit. On this episode, boys and girls, it is the long-awaited return to, well, not the big screen, but the small screen, because it's coming at us in a form of a new series. But A League of Their Own is back into the universe, and it is streaming on Prime Video for all you subscribers out there. And it is again the story of a young woman trying out for the All-American Girls Professional Baseball Team, and there she meets other women who dream of playing baseball and makes connections and opens up her world. But you know, things change, and you know, she's finding that in 1943 it's hard to forge a new path to really understand and find her dream. And it's a hell of a show, and I mean, they really did a good job with this, and it's really one that it's not going to be hard for audiences to get sucked back into, and we hope you check it out. But we had the unique pleasure of sitting down with one of the stars of the show, and it is, guess what, it's a Canadian. Miss Kelly McCormack, who you've heard previously on this podcast from her own film, Sugar Daddy. She had the fantastic chance of getting the role of Jess McCready for this show, and you know, to borrow a corny pun, she knocks it out of the park. And it's again, it's a fun show, it's an empowering show, and it captures the spirit of the original, but still carves out its own space, really. And we talked with Kelly about this and getting the job, and just so very much more. And we had a great conversation with her. So be sure to check out A League of Their Own, which is streaming now on Prime Video for all of you people who are subscribers. I do recommend you go check it out. But first, enjoy our talk with Kelly, because between you and me, it's a pretty good one.
Obviously, Kelly, I mean, first off, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate this.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure.
No, I mean, congrats on the show. I really enjoyed it. I got to watch a couple episodes. It is so much fun. And I mean, I was struck by just how it's sort of honoring the film, but also creating its own space outside of that at the same time. I mean, I guess my first question is just walk me through that story of getting the call to read for the show.
Oof. Well, I had just moved to Los Angeles. I've been going back and forth for like 5 years, but I officially made the jump in the fall of 2019. And I had just started working with this new manager, and it was the first audition he sent to me. And it was one of those, I mean, as someone who suffers with a lot of like fraud syndrome and self-doubt and like unworthiness, swimming in a constant pool of self-doubt, it's very rare that I read like a breakdown for an audition, and I have this like, I've only ever had this experience once, and it was for Killjoys, where I read the part and I went, well, who else is going to play this part? And that's not as a self-deprecating Canadian, we don't really have access to that kind of like, it's not really generated in the arts community, that kind of like cocky attitude. But I just felt when I read it, a deep sense of like, this was sort of has been waiting for me for a long time. Like this was the result of years of preparation before I even got the audition. So when I walked into I did 3 auditions for it that I had to keep flying to LA for. But when I walked into the room, I was sort of like, here I am, guys, what's up? And then I, did all the studio tests and all the stuff. And then Abbi Jacobson told me afterwards, she was like, yeah, the part was always yours, even though I was stressed out. And then when they called me, the casting director, Felicia Fasano, was like, she just said, do you want to be a peach? And I started screaming because who doesn't want to be a peach?
Of course. Well, I just love a story of a Canadian going to LA and batting 1,000. So I mean, that's just perfect,
Well, that and then the baseball references like wouldn't stop. So then my manager, when every time I went an audition afterwards, he's like, her batting average is really good. She booked the first thing I ever sent her on. Yeah.
No, I mean, I've got to ask, like, is it a different dynamic to sort of be co-starring the creator of the show? I can imagine it's like not necessarily weird, but it creates a different energy.
Well, I'm sort of used to it because of my own filmmaking. Like I'm used to being a person who's like the writer or the director and the filmmaker and who's just among the actors. I mean, Abbi is like the most kind, funny, generous, sweet, and like good, like solid human being that you would ever hope her to be based on her work. It was wonderful. The show was so collaborative. They told us very early on that they were going to base the characters off of us in some sort of capacity. So they were really welcoming and opened the doors to us to come in and be like, well, what if my character's this? I mean, when I booked the part, the character wasn't Canadian. Yeah. And then of course I knew that a lot of the league had Canadian players. So I sort of just announced to them, I'm like, my character will be from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Are you okay with that? And Abbi was like, okay. And I was like, cool. Well, I'm going to do all this research on Moose Jaw and bring it to the character. So anyway, yeah, she was amazing. The dynamic was, she was quite literally our creative leader and our coach. So it kind of worked out. It was great.
Cool. That's cool. Now, I mean, I guess this dovetails into the next question. Had you ever picked up a ball and a bat before? Like, did you have to sort of do any research on that front?
No, I played baseball quite a bit, and sports in general were like a huge part of my upbringing. So I felt very comfortable playing baseball before. I might have been the only actor who like didn't lie in the audition because they asked, like, have you ever played baseball? And rule of thumb is you just say, yep, I have, but I truly had played baseball. Yeah. So, and like as an actor, I've played like a hockey player, I've played a curler, I've done a bunch of different sports stuff. So I'm pretty comfortable with the kind of like dual pressure that you have where you're like, don't like be a good actor on camera and also don't hit the camera with your, your bat or your ball or whatever. So yeah, I had done baseball and, I was excited. And I also played shortstop. So it sort of worked out in that way too.
Perfect. Now, I mean, obviously people are going to make comparisons to the film. And I mean, and the film obviously is very rapid fire and it's got a lot of stuff going on. But I mean, the show seems like it's taking its time and it's managing to say something a lot more clearly. Like, how important was that for you to sort of balance the funny and the comedic elements versus the actual statement elements that the show is making?
Yeah, I've reached a point in my career where I just want to participate in things that count and things that are trying to change the world a little bit and move the needle on behalf of women and queer people and people of color and like try and participate. As actors, you don't necessarily have that opportunity in the beginning of your career. You're just sort of like blanket yes to everything because like, that's how that goes. But it was incredibly important to me that we were pushing it further. And there's like sports movies. There's like 4 or 5 sports movies about like one famous game in almost every sport. There's like always, it's not that we're just rebooting the film. We're reimagining the film, but we're also just giving that time period, the one time in history where, women have been allowed to play professional baseball. We're just giving that period more airtime, and we're giving, we're following the muses of those women that actually lived, as opposed to necessarily the ones that ended up in the film. And I hope that, that the struggle between the private life and the personal life is more exfoliated in our show. And it helps with like those, behavioral question marks that we had about some of the characters in the film.
No, for sure. Absolutely. And I mean, again, just being able to see sort of women's sports represented so positively, I mean, is a good thing. And I mean, this day and age, I mean, obviously we have the WNBA and there's a couple of other things, but I'm curious from your perspective as an actor, and I mean, as a sporting person, do you think we're going to get closer and closer to a day and age where we have more, I mean, I don't want to say equal footing, because I mean, the money is always going to be very different, but at least sort of respect for women in sports? Because I mean, you and I obviously both know quite well how dominant sort of the Canadian female hockey team has been over the Olympics and internationally over the years. It's again one of those things where it's like, it almost feels like there could be like a female version of the NHL, but I'm curious if you think we'll get there one day.
I think it's in our hands as viewers and as fans. All it takes is becoming a fan of one female player and one female team, just like you became a fan of other men's teams when you're young. If we kind of abandon this idea, I think it's really important that we abandon this idea that, well, why would I watch women's sports when women aren't as strong or as fast or as whatever? If you understand sports as just sheer might or sheer like performative masculinity and like violence and power and like aggression and strength, if that's what you understand sports to be, then yeah, maybe you'll only watch male sports your whole life. But what the movie does and what we do is show that there's a lot that goes on in a sports game. It's the competition, the underdog, the narratives, the relationships. We all watched that the Michael Jordan documentary for in the beginning of the pandemic, and it's an incredible doc because we're watching a human being's like determined and sometimes like self-hating and self-loving attempt to succeed and do something great with his life. And that's something that, who doesn't want to watch women against all odds succeed? Because if a woman is becoming an athlete, she's already undergone so much pressure to live a different type of life. She's already gone so much pressure and people telling her like, you can't base a life off of this. You're not going to make money. As a Canadian, we all know that like we all went to high school with guys who were going to come up and be hockey players. It's sort of like, of course, it's a difficult thing to do, but there is all this infrastructure to be like, yes, that's a future that could be yours. And I think we as viewers and we as fans hold the power that, seeing the women's soccer players in the Olympics, seeing the female hockey team, like it's slowly getting there. We're slowly going, what these women have to bring to the sport and the way they play it is going to be different. And that difference is just as good, if not better, and more thrilling and exciting, in my opinion.
No, and I mean, I think you're right, because I mean, I think this is something the show does as well. It's like when you're an athlete at the highest level, audiences tend to think of these sports as, sort of a game of checkers, when in reality, it's more of a game of chess. Exactly. With not just in terms of sort of what's going on the field or on the court or what have you, but just in terms of their lives and sort of getting to these levels. And I mean, for you as an actor who is, you've made the move to LA, you're doing your own films, like how do you see your game of chess sort of unfolding, or can you even sort of predict that? Because I mean, you're a piece on the board in reality, really. You're still figuring things out in many ways.
Yeah. Oh man, a game of chess. Wouldn't that be fun? A game of chess. What drives me is what I'm scared of and what challenges me. Every time I book a role, the next thing I want to do almost by design has to be the most opposite of what I've just done. I'm incredibly driven. I like to push myself. I like to pick up new skills. And so I think that if someone else was in control of my career, there might be it might be more of a poetic chess game because we're doing this, but I'm the kind of person who wants to like flip the whole game and the pieces
You
fly
want to flip the board out. Yeah, I get it. I like that.
you know,
Yeah.
if I do, I just did this sports show where I play like an aggressive, like farm boy, shortstop, wily, chain smoking, cool dude. And then like right after that, I went and did like a Nashville big hair, lipstick hair, like a TV show called George and Tammy. And it was so exactly what I need is if I that, and if it doesn't, I'll say no. And so, yeah, the chess game, man, I think my mom would be stoked if I had more of like a gentle, like strategic idea of my career. I really am hell bent on like oblivion and reinvention and myself and working in theater and working in film and working as a director and working in music and doing all of it all together at all times.
So, I mean, obviously it's a bit early to predict, but I mean, would it be scary for you or would it be enjoyable for you if you got the call again to sort of play shortstop if there was a season 2, as it were?
Oh, like if I wanted this
Yeah,
again?
exactly. Like to play the same role again.
No. I mean, who doesn't want to play Jess? Look how cool they are. I will play Jess. I will play Jess as long as they will have me. No. I'm signed up for the long haul with this show, and I hope people want more from these characters. And I could say a lot about my character emotionally and get more in depth about it, but at the end of the day, she's just cool as hell, and she smokes and she drinks, and she hits on women and is like got her priorities straight. She's about that baseball, she's about the ladies, and she's about her cigarettes and her booze. And honestly, I'm here for it.
Well, I keep flipping that chessboard and keep being there for it because I can't wait to see it. But again, congrats on the show and thank you so much for the time today.
And thank you so much. It was so nice to see you again.
Absolutely, likewise. Can't wait for the next time.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.